Congressional hearings, whistleblowers, UFO, UAP, shadow government agencies, and a public outcry for truth. But is it coming? Is the truth really out there? The world has dealt with upheaval the past 5 to 6 years, from politics to pandemics, financial crisis, and during all of it, a soft disclosure of UFO and UAP footage with highly respected officials and politicians coming forward with information. Yet our news headlines read of stories of Kevin Spacey's acquittal and box office numbers for the Barbie movie, while live streaming of congressional hearings on the UFO UAP findings are being relegated to YouTube streaming. Tonight, I'm joined by Ron James, a filmmaker, and his newest film, Accidental Truth, investigates this phenomenon. The truth can no longer be contained by those duty-bound to hide it. Officials who interact with public regarding the UFO question openly, acknowledge that they know that there are things that they cannot reveal. In Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, the reality of an advanced intelligence engaging with humanity becomes undeniably clear. That's our topic when we return right here. This is my realm. You've now entered the Paranormal 60.
I'm not gonna stand here and listen to this baloney. He won't float. He doesn't stand for baloney.
Sounds like a lot of supernatural baloney to me. Supernatural, perhaps. Baloney, perhaps not.
Good evening, my little darklings. Joining me tonight is Ron James, a filmmaker, on-camera personality, writer, editor, researcher, content creator, and entrepreneur. His new documentary, Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, narrated by Matthew Modine, has won 17 Film Festival Awards. It was recently mentioned by name at the beginning of the latest UAVP congressional hearing by Representative Tim Burchett. The film has been called one of the most important UFO documentaries of all time. It lays out the case and the truth behind the headlines that are unfolding as we speak.
The UFO reality can no longer be denied. In 2017, the New York Times broke a front-page story about a shadowy government program.
Pentagon had this secret UFO monitoring agency which nobody knew about.
Don't ask me, because I'm not going to tell you.
Instead of answers, we've been given a new narrative. The UAPs are not ours or any foreign government's.
Then the question is, whose are they?
You can ask the questions, but who you're going to ask them of. And you've got to make sure you're asking the right people.
There are many things that are out there in the ether that aren't officially brought to our attention.
How would it have to be officially brought to your attention? I'm bringing it to your attention.
Sure.
Do you expect to see real answers in this report?
Honestly, I don't think so, Jake.
A memorable quote in that is, technology not of this earth, not made by man.
That's a profound moment.
So have you studied classified materials, but you just don't have them?
I just shouldn't say anything more.
Individuals at the Pentagon confirmed the Roswell spacecraft real.
It's just a complete cover-up.
Some phenomena point to an interaction with consciousness.
Maybe the physical evolved from consciousness.
Life may exist in all sorts of forms. The question is, what's our definition of life?
Thank you for joining me tonight, Ron James. Great to have you here with us.
Thank you, Dave. You're a living legend. It's great to be on your show.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Listen, I'm going to be straight out of the chute honest with you. I have been nonstop on the go for the last 3 weeks. I missed the congressional hearings that took place last week and have not had a chance to catch up. But the one thing that I'm watching, as I see so many people fascinated and interested by this topic, is the confusion that's going on. That people do not really understand what these meetings mean, and are we getting anywhere? Now, just from reading some of the headlines and quickly glimpsing through some of the shorter versions of the articles, it's come to my attention that out of the 6 to 9 possible witnesses, only 3 showed up. Some were bullied out of it. Some were threatened by government agencies to possibly lose their positions if they came forward. Now, these are great secondhand stories, Ron, but is there something really going on, or is there just not that many witnesses willing to actually come forward? So let's build up the hype by talking about the 6 that couldn't be here for, secret reasons or fear for their life.
Well, if that stuff was coming from tabloids or, far out people that have questionable sources, that would be one thing. But if Tim Burchett says it, I believe it's true. And I know Tim personally. I have briefed him in his office about everything MUFON knows about UFOs, everything the UFO community knows about UFOs. And I've briefed Andre Carson. And if these guys are saying that happened, I totally believe it. This whole thing that we've been seeing unfold in the media since 2017, when Elizondo popped out with running ATIP, has been this kind of controlled, I believe, program of somewhat disclosure, but it also has detractors and enemies. And so what we see unfold in the mainstream media is representing this internal battle that's going on inside various factions of government, industry, and compartmentalized programs. Some want the information out, some don't. And so, if Tim Burchett says there are other witnesses that got intimidated by the Pentagon, I think you can count on it.
Now, we've also started to hear the talk a little bit more readily and more available that not only are there craft that seem otherworldly, but there are, how are they referring to the biological? They're non-earthly biologic
just
specimens.
Biological specimens, non-human. The film Accidental Truth lays it all out. In fact, I'm not trying to plug my film, but I think everybody should see it. The story that it tells and the evidence that it presents and the people indeed that are doing it in the film, it's like reality just got ripped out of this documentary and ended up on everybody's TV sets. The Accidental Truth tells the whole story that David Grush is now acknowledging. And I have it on good authority that this film kind of pushed the envelope. The intelligence community and the people that are trying to hide this stuff, I didn't leave them anywhere else to go. It's like, look, guys, I acted as if I was an attorney laying out the case for material recoveries, crash debris, the whole lie about everything ending with Blue Book and not starting again until the OSOP program under Bigelow. That's all a lie. This whole thing's been going on since before the 40s, and it never stopped. And so this new narrative that they're trying to lay out on us, that started in 2017 of, we're just now starting to be interested in this. It's a crock and it's a lie. And people in Congress know this because I've told them, and so have other people. And guys like Tim Burchett, he's really, he's personally engaged in this topic. And these people on Capitol Hill that we think are part of this big government conspiracy to cover it up, I can tell you, because I've sat in their offices, these guys are just as angry as the rest of us in ufology about the fact that we're not getting the truth. And so David Grush, bam, he smashed the glass, and we confirm his story.
All right. Well, talking about him smashing the glass, it was interesting when he first came out. There was this whistleblower, high ranking official. I know somebody who actually works in the same realm, and he can confirm that Grush is who he says, has the clearance and credibility, has heard nothing but good and glowing things about Grush for a long time. So he was, he just kind of laid that information on my shoulders this weekend. And he then went on to say, but I don't know really what's going on. It's interesting the time that they chose, because according to the understanding, Ron, the footage of the Tic Tacs and things had been around for quite a while, but it wasn't released really until we were kind of in the throes of COVID. And there's just all of a sudden this kind of information groundswell starts to bubble up a lot more to the top. Is that because people were finally home and could focus and now it was being seen more? Was that meant as a distraction towards the horrific nature of this pandemic that was claiming millions of lives as it was being reported at the time?
Well,
what do you think the timing of this was all about?
I'm not a big fan of major deep conspiracy theories when logical explanations are readily available. The story with the Tic Tac UFOs broke in 2017 by Ralph Blumenthal in the New York Times with Leslie Kean and I keep forgetting her last name, and I'm so sorry. It was 3 people who wrote this article. Lou Elizondo came forward. The To the Stars Academy was waiting in the wings to jump in and gracefully bring disclosure to mankind for a price. And it was all, in my opinion, contrived and enacted. And that's when we saw it start to unfold. So this was before COVID. So I'm not really sure that there's any kind of big boost in awareness during COVID, except maybe people had more time on their hands. But the whole thing basically broke in 2017, then went pretty stagnant and sideways. Even the hearings that we had that were supposed to be something, the first 2 hearings, the first one was pretty bad. The second one, in my opinion, was even worse. At least this one that we just had with David Grush and Fravor and memories zapping me on the third guy.
No,
but
that's what,
you know, at least these guys were telling us something, you know, although we didn't have proof, at least they're finally coming forward with the story that is true. At least Grush is. Yes, we have recovered craft. We have recovered materials. There have been biological samples taken. We know this is true. Everybody in ufology knows it's true. And finally, it's like, gosh, guys, let's get it out. We're sick of being lied to. And when I made Accidental Truth, there's a lot of people out there in ufology, and you guys know who you are. You've been pulled into the corner by somebody, and you've been told, look, I'm going to tell you something, but this is not for public dissemination. And so those people have become part of the cover-up. They're towing the official line. They're playing the game to satisfy their own need for, you know, the self-gratification that having this inside knowledge gives. I didn't make that deal with anybody. Everybody, everything that I portray in Accidental Truth, every time I catch one of these guys in a lie, every time I get them to say something that they didn't mean to say, I got that information fair and square, and I put it in the film, and I'm not pulling any punches with it because I'm fed up with the fact that there's a select few people still perpetrating the biggest deception ever put on the human race. And it's like, it's time for us to rise up and quit playing this game and call a spade a spade. And that's what I did with Accidental Truth. And I've been told by some people that that film circulated around the Defense Intelligence Agency. I know it circulated around Congress because they asked for their own copies, and it circulated around the intelligence community. And these guys are like, okay, man, the gig is up. This is done. We're going to have to, there's nowhere left to run after that movie.
What do you think? And help me understand this. It seems from reading and following the history of ufology, and at one point it almost seemed like the government had a soft acceptance of it. They knew about it. They were, they talked about it. They were looking at these things, and it was just kind of like any other part of our world. There's the footage, and help me on this. Am I mental? I know I've seen the footage. I believe I've seen the footage of Eisenhower, I think it was doing a press conference. And at the end, as he's walking off stage, somebody throws a question to him regarding the saucers, to which he just nonchalantly turns and says, yeah, we know about the saucers. We're looking into it. We're working on that right now. And just walks like, it's like, oh yeah. And by the way, guys, Merry Christmas. It was just so nonchalant in its approach. I can't find that footage again. I've looked and looked, and I haven't been able to uncover it for myself. But did that exist? And how did we go from this kind of, there's definitely something going on, to this wall of secrecy, this iron curtain, and the history that we're currently entrenched in?
Here's the thing. The story we're being told now is literally a regurgitation of a same exact story we were told in the 50s. General Samford from the Air Force literally got on TV and acknowledged that there's craft in our airspace doing things we can't explain. We don't have the technology. They're not ours. The Air Force is committed to finding out what they are. And if they're a threat to our airspace or a threat to national security, then the military is obligated to get to the bottom of it. the whole thing got rolled out again in 2017 and over the last couple of years. And it's so bad, they couldn't even hire a different screenwriter to rewrite the script. If you go back, we pointed out in the movie and we show it side by side. Here's this guy in 1953 saying the exact thing Elizondo and Moultrie and Bray, the guys from the hearings, are saying today. And it's ridiculous. And so, yes, there's been acknowledgement about the UFO phenomenon that's happened before, and then it's gotten quashed down, and then the ridicule factor came in, and then years and years of it not really being a big deal except to the hardcore UFO community. And for whatever reason that they're bringing it forth now, they've contrived this whole new narrative so that they can escape culpability for what they've been lying about for the last 100 years. And so if the general public is going to believe this story, the story they're going to believe is we closed Project Blue Book. We weren't doing anything in those years until we did this deal with Robert Bigelow where we gave him a contract to do some things. And everything else is just a blank, nothing to see here. And it's all one big lie. And so the film kind of fills in those gaps with real evidence about what was going on and who was doing it and what they found and what they studied. And so, yeah, it's hard because so many people in the general public are going to believe this story and they're going to be satisfied with the story, and they're not going to understand that this is just an elaborate way for these guys to finally admit something that I believe they have no choice but to admit. At some point, technology like the Webb telescope or private space flight or advanced sensors that are now in the hands of civilians, like Carolyn Corey in her movie Terror in the Sky, she just got a bunch of guys together with some state-of-the-art stuff, and they might have found a portal. So you can't just continue to lie about this stuff because it's going to become so obvious that you've got to get out in front of it. So we're seeing this big dog and pony show, the way it's playing out. You know, Grush isn't out there saying anything he wasn't given permission to say. In fact, we know that. The Pentagon went over all of his talking points before he did the news story. And
isn't that interesting? That was something I was going to bring up as well, right? We get this word, this whistleblower comes out, he comes out, releases, people are kind of doing the shock and awe. Then there's the even bigger shock and awe that the government's like, yeah, we gave them the okay to do this. But yet now the articles that are coming out after this most recent congressional are now calling into question his credibility, which is counterproductive and counterintuitive to the information that the Pentagon released saying, yeah, we gave him permission to say this. There's so much dissemination of information and disinformation that I don't want to buy into all of the weird conspiracies, but I can't wrap my head around any logic to anything that's going on other than to just make it look like the most illogical thing. So people are just kind of, whatever. And let's move on to Kevin Spacey. He's been acquitted. Really? Now he's been acquitted in the UK too. Does that mean House of Cards season 7? You know, and to me, it's so weird the way this whole news faction is breaking it down.
Well, you know, it's the Empire Strikes Back. It's like Richard Dolan says in the film. Not everybody wants this information out. And what we're seeing play out in the media is literally a macro of this battle that's being waged behind closed doors. And there's people passionate about it on either side. There's this whole industrial complex that has been built on having technology and keeping technology from humanity and the edges that the corporations have gotten over the years. There's a lot of people that really just want to maintain the status quo for a whole variety of reasons. And they're not happy because, you know, if it comes out that we've got some sort of technology that can put the ability to power a house in your garage, wow, that changes the entire planet. And the ones that it changes it for the most are the people that are the most in power to prevent it from happening. So, you know, this thing's really starting to heat up, and we just need to be vigilant, and we need to not listen to the lies, and we need to be willing to, you know, call your congressman, because these guys they're paying attention right now.
We have to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We'll continue talking with our guest, and I've got questions. I know you've got questions. We'll be back with more right after this. The documentary Accidental Truth is streaming now on Apple TV and on Prime Video. Make sure you check this movie out for yourself. Our guest this evening, Ron James. And I keep seeing the little subtle subliminal tip you keep showing me with your coffee cup. For those of you listening, every time I kind of bring something up, he always brings up the Don't Trust Humans coffee cup and takes a quaint sip from
I
it.
have the other side, but I don't want to drink with my left hand and spill coffee on my shirt.
Well, all right. So here's the big question, and I just want your take on it. And I know you can't definitively answer, but to what end do we continue to hide this? What if it's truly coming, and we're 10, 20, 50 years out from the truth being out there officially? Why not just accept it now? It seems the public is ready, or more ready now than ever. More people have turned away from generalized religions. So there's not going to be that public outcry or backlash. The Vatican has their own observatory. The Vatican has said it's no longer a sin to believe in beings in outer space because our God is too great a creator to stop with one planet. So it seems all of these things are already in place. Why not just tell us, yeah, there's aliens? Have they been here? I don't know.
I think that we're pretty much about to hear that yes, there's aliens. But the problem is the context. If they come out and they say, yeah, there's non-human intelligence, they've been engaging us for a long time. They're not a threat. We do our thing. They do their thing. Mm-hmm. They don't even really seem that concerned about us. People are going to go on with their lives and go, yeah, I knew it. But if it's like, hey, there's a whole bunch of different species in the galaxy, and every one of them has a different agenda, and Earth is a pretty valuable piece of real estate from the galactic standpoint, and we are powerless over our own destiny. And maybe that's coming to a head very soon. Now, that's a whole other thing. That will cause earthquakes through society. So it's the context of disclosure. But, also, I think that these things are just going to become so obvious that something has to be said, something has to be revealed. When I first started to make the film, I was really angry. When I sat down and I interviewed Lou Elizondo, we had a great interview and a great rapport. But there was a part of me that was just like, dude, you're sitting 5 feet away from me and you have the keys to the kingdom and you're not going to share and you can't share. And that really ticked me off. And over time, I came to understand the other side of it, that guys like Lou are duty bound patriots, and they're just not going to violate the oaths that they made when they took the job that they took. And as hard as that is to swallow, you still have to admire it and you have to respect it. So my perspective on this kind of shifted a little bit as far as the people that are keeping the secrecy. Revealing it is above their pay grade, and whether they want to do it or not, they're men of reasonable honor that are doing what they're told to do in the tradition of a finely duty-bound soldier. So it is what it is, but it sucks.
Well, there seems to be a cyclical nature to this. Right. Every 50 years, every 60 years, we're going to seem to kind of address, yeah, we know there's something. We don't know what it is. But it is interesting that in this new wave, hot off the heels of the Tic Tac video, suddenly Russia and China are showing off and flexing weapons that are flying at super speeds, and their missiles are hitting at pretty accurate levels. And then we're showing footage that we have of these craft that we know aren't Russia, we know aren't China, they aren't us. I think that's why people are so confused as to, so is this all just a ponderous bullying of one another that, hey, Russia, we know this footage isn't you. China, we know it's not you, but where could this be? Is the Tic Tac really American? And we're just flexing a little bit under the auspice of UFO UAP. And then Russia goes, oh, yeah, take a look at this, comrade. We can go supersonic and drop missile very quick, right? And suddenly it becomes
until it hits a Patriot missile. I mean,
right.
their legendary hypersonic missile is a dud. So exactly. The idea that they could pioneer Tic Tac technology that defies the laws of physics and puts us on our back feet is a little far-fetched. I mean, these guys can't even get a tank together that doesn't spring open like a jack in the box. So at the end of the day, I don't think it's them. But
right. But I wonder more about the whole idea of what exactly, everybody seems to be posturing. The major powers around the world are showing. And again, is this a show of force? Maybe not necessarily to America or China or the rest of the world, but is this possibly a show of strength and solidarity to whoever's watching above, that we do have weapons and we're not afraid to use them, which obviously, if these aliens have been watching us, know we're a reckless, destructive crew. That's why I said it's things like that that just have my brain kind of whirling as to the end game for all of this. And are we really on each other's side? Are we stirring stuff up on purpose? Are we getting ready to reveal because it's ready to reveal and we can't stop the tide anymore?
Well, it's already revealed. I mean, people say, well, these are, they're human technology craft. And so I did an investigation into that. I didn't put it in the film, but there was a scientist named Salvatore Pais that and forgive me if I butchered the pronunciation of his name. This guy patented a bunch of technology that looks strangely like the stuff that makes the Tic Tacs work. The problem is the patent office wouldn't give him the patents. And the Department of the Navy had to go to the patent office and say, you have to grant these patents because we believe this technology is real. But this guy was throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks. He was trying to guess how these things are working, but we have no idea how to make these. We're starting to understand the physics that makes them work. And we're starting to understand, even how you could traverse a wormhole and come from great distances. We're starting to see that stuff is real. We have no clue yet how to actually set it up at Lockheed Martin and start making Tic Tacs that do the things that these do. And these type of craft have been visible since the 50s and before, Foo Fighters in World War II. So you could say it's human technology today, and maybe you could make an argument for that, but you can't say it was human technology 70 years ago. And so the truth is coming out, and all of these countries posturing against each other. I think there really is a battle for how this planet is going to be governed. And it really is between like an authoritarian, hellish regime where we're basically all enslaved, or some kind of freedom and democracy. But that's a side fight. It doesn't have anything to do, I don't think, with the overall alien picture. Those guys are just waiting to see what we figure out, and rather we're going to destroy ourselves, or rather we're going to earn our way into a better future. But right now, one thing's for sure: things are coming to a head on planet Earth with human society, with our understanding of what we are, with our scientific understanding, and with our horrible aggression toward one another. And we're either going to come out of this and enlighten the species that's not so bent on self-destruction, or we're going to self-destruct. And in my personal opinion, and I can't say, that I'm saying this from MUFON's point of view because I'm their media relations director, but this isn't an official point. I think that there's many different non-human intelligences watching this, and some of them want different outcomes for us. And it's up to us to make it happen. And right now, we're not doing a very good job, Dave.
No, agreed. I'm curious on another point. Are you familiar with John Surl and the Surl effect generator?
Yeah, I actually was working with some people that were working with him. I went to the laboratory that they set up in San Diego some years ago. It's interesting, but I haven't kept up with it recently.
Right. For listeners that may not be familiar, I had the opportunity to interview Bradley Lockerman, who was working with John Surl at the time, and he brought John on my show.
I know Brad Lockerman, filmmaker.
Yeah. And
I look like Greg Braden a little bit.
John Surl is deaf by all accounts, but yet he can hear through vibration, which is what we call hearing anyway. But he believes it has to do with being around the equipment that he created in I believe it was the 50s, perhaps even early 60s. He created a self-sustaining energy source at his home, the Surl effect generator.
Surl effect generator, yeah.
He created these little craft that he could radio control, that with the natural earth elements that he implemented in them was able to create open a pocket of air or atmosphere in front of the craft so it could go at extremely fast speeds. And they were able to clock it, time it, watch this whole thing unfurl So we know this is out there. There are newspaper articles. There are all these things. And Surl claims there are no UFOs. This is the technology that's being used. And he believes a lot of it is stolen from him.
Surl. I spent a lot of time looking into this. And like I said, Surl obtained some funding. They set up a laboratory in California. As a matter of fact, I'll look at my phone. I have a picture of me at the Surl laboratory. It's about 10, 15 years old. But they couldn't replicate the Surl effect to any extent in a laboratory condition. And so it just kind of petered out. But you bring up something that is very interesting. And that is that the idea that craft can be created that are able to bypass the known laws of physics using fields and energies that we don't understand and ways to amplify energy that we don't understand. That's how these things are working. And we don't get it. We don't understand it yet, but it is what's going on. So, the Surl effects generator is an interesting concept. I don't know that it went anywhere, but the fact that there's a lot of different sciences that we don't know about yet, that's absolutely true. I'm looking for this picture. It's really cool. We're actually
right. And it's interesting too, though. And the reason I brought it up was you talked about the fact that, hey, we've got this possibly otherworldly technology that would allow us to have our own energy, which would kneecap a lot of very important industries that wouldn't like us to have these type of things. And if we can create craft that can fly and envelope time, space, or atmosphere so that we can break laws of physics, that starts to open up a whole new world of theoretical science, and time travel may not be so far behind. And I don't mean to get off on too big a tangent, Ron, but I mean, it's fascinating that these concepts and sciences have been around for a while. Hitler's guys were working on this at one point, right? I mean, they were trying to figure out, you get the domination of air, you win the war. It seems that if truly one of these countries was the one with the dominant force, by now we would have shown off that force. Where do you fall in on that? That if we really had full control over this type of technology, Russia, China, America at one point here would have flexed. And
either none of us have it or all of us have it and we're not using it, just like nukes. That they're in Tom DeLonge's book, which he says came from legitimate sources. He talks about that Russia and pretty much every major power has these little flying triangles, and they're battling with them on different levels. I don't know, where to stand on that. It's in the gray box, but it seems to me that that if one of us has it, we're all going to have it, because that's just kind of how it works. It wasn't long after we invented the nuclear bomb that Russia had it, and everybody in the world had it, or at least knew how to do it. So, and here's Ray. He just popped in that we have it, but we don't know how to use it. There's a lot of evidence for failed reverse engineering programs. Right. There's evidence for people that have gotten hurt by some of these craft and some of the stuff they were trying to reverse engineer. So I think that we've made some success with reverse engineering some of these crafts, and we've derived a certain amount of technology from it, but I don't think we've cracked the case completely yet.
Donna makes a compelling point. My guess is we all have the tech, but possibly not the resource to activate it.
Yeah, right? I mean, that's kind of what I just said. It's I believe that's probably true. And I was asked today on a radio show about why is it the United States that's so centric to this? I think that there's probably a very deeply buried cooperation agreement that we'll never know about, where there is a group that's responsible for this, and it's by worldwide treaty. That's why we don't see foreign countries going out and leaking all the secrets. I think that this is managed and kept from humanity on a worldwide basis, and that cooperation.
Right. You bring up a good point that let me address that real quickly here. You mentioned the fact that there is a secrecy, yet I love watching people shake their fist in righteous indignation saying Canada, France, Germany, England have all released their UFO papers, and they're not afraid to show. Right. They've released just as much as we have, and it's been redacted and covered up and just given us the very basics as well. Please reiterate that so listeners understand, viewers get that concept, because I don't think they really realize it. I've read through them. There's nothing of any great import.
No, there's nothing there.
No.
In the film, we point out that when they say Project Blue Book closed, and that was that. At the same time, there was a general named Carol Bollinger that actually made a statement, something to the effect of, not only did the study continue under a completely different Air Force program, but that Air Force program was in effect during Project Blue Book, and any cases of significance that could affect national security were handled through that program and not Project Blue Book. So we have an actual government admission on the record that Project Blue Book was a lie, and that there was and continued to be these programs studying this stuff. And what's different about that is that we can prove it now. We can literally prove it. And all of these countries have these programs with this whitewashing and these smoke screens. And so anybody that says that Britain Ministry of Defense released all their UFO material, and anybody that thinks Canada released it all, or that thinks even Brazil released it all, they don't understand how this works. And you can tell just by the material that was released. If it's true that they released everything they had, then all of us need to just go find something else to do, because there's nothing to see here. And we know that's not true.
Ray Lancashire also asks, do you believe that Europe still has an active UFO investigation program that's going on?
Well, we know that they do, because we know that the government is doing all kinds of experiments to try and get to the bottom of crop circles. So I think that any country with an intelligence budget is paying attention to this. And I think there's a cooperation level on a worldwide basis that is far greater than we know. It's just like, we can be having this war with Russia through Ukraine, and things can be terrible, but we still have people up on the space station together. Those kind of things can exist.
An interesting question here Tabitha brings up as well. Who's going to apologize to the people whose lives they've ruined?
That's a really good point. And I'll tell you who's going to apologize. Nobody, because they're all going to be dead. The whole purpose of this new rollout and this new story about how this all happened, it's all a lie, is to protect the people that are still alive. And they're going to continue. The 509th Bomber Group that was involved in getting that stuff out of Roswell, they're all dead. Cover up complete. And so the people that are accountable for what's happened will never know who they were. Most of them are gone, and they've been replaced by a whole different generation of compartmentalized individuals that really, some of them, very few of them probably even know the big picture. And the institutional memory of all of this is probably gone forever as well. So what they're trying to do right now with this new narrative and the way they're rolling it out is acknowledge the reality of the topic, but never have to apologize for anything, because they're playing this, oh yeah, we just started looking at this. And it's hard to watch, but it's so painfully obvious.
One thing I've often thought, Ron, and I know is echoed by many people's sentiment, is the fact that we've painted ourselves, the government has painted themselves into a corner for so many years by ignoring or lying about what's going on, that I feel like if disclosure truly happens, as you kind of stated at the beginning of this, it starts now. We can say, hey, all of that found nothing, but now we are finding something.
Oh, yeah, Tic Tacs in 2004, where in Accidental Truth, Joel Elizondo is saying, well, government is just now beginning to take this topic seriously. And I remember in the interview, I'm looking at him and I'm like, you're kidding, right? I mean, you don't really believe what you're saying. And yeah, but that's what he said. And we know it's just not true. And so, yeah,
well, wouldn't it make sense though?
Story,
if we're afraid, real quickly, if we're afraid of relating or relaying to our citizens that this is a very real phenomenon, we have no control over it, these things can come and go as they please, that's one spin. But why can't the tail wag the dog in this instance and go, yeah, there's been crashes, we're responsible for those, we do have your back, America, we do have a way to protect us, we can't tell you what it is, which is all bluster and nonsense, but at least give Americans the false bravado that Uncle Sam is standing strong and has his laser cannon ready to go, because there's been so many shot down or crashes, right? That at this point, if these are legitimate crash sites and there are so many of them taking place, it makes you wonder, what kind of shoddy workmanship are these aliens using that they keep crashing on Earth? Or what kind of weaponry do we have that's knocking them out of the sky.
Well, look, Dave, here's the thing. The last thing we want is for these guys to tell us more lies, to cover up more lies. And the fact of the matter is that if these are nuts and bolts technology made out of exotic materials and using technology that we don't understand, they're still nuts and bolts technology. They're still made out of something they can still break. And so, you know, and then there's also the idea that maybe some of these just were dropped on purpose to give us a trail of breadcrumbs to follow. But the last thing we want is the government coming out and acknowledging that these things are real and then telling us something that's not true. You know, if they have no control,
I don't know.
They should just tell us.
I'm with you on the major concept of that, Ron, but I also am a father, and I know that my kids don't. When we hear a knock in the night, they want dad to say everything's okay. I got this, even though dad's knees are knocking underneath the same sheets theirs are, because I don't know what that noise was or where it came from. They want that, and government feeling like
Dave,
this overlord.
If this is all true, which I have every reason to believe it is, I've dedicated a good portion of my career towards sharing it with other people. It's time for humanity to put on its big boy pants and face reality and figure out how we're going to react to this thing. It's like, oh, it's scary. It doesn't have to be scary. I honestly believe that there are species that are a variety of life forms, not even just ETs, that they might be part of it, but there's all kinds of other elements at play here, from the esoteric to the spiritual, all waiting to see what decisions we're going to make as a species, and if we're going to survive our own penchant for self-destruction. So that's the real challenge, and it's the challenge for our own survival, and it's probably the same challenge that the ETs and everybody else are waiting to see what we do, and it's hands off. It's okay, humanity, you earned your right to self-determine, so now you can do it, but we're not going to help you, or we're not going to zoom in here and save you, because there's probably a whole galactic mop-up crew that's ready to recycle the earth for all we know. So, you know, it can get pretty crazy if you start taking the deep dive. But humanity needs to absorb this knowledge, whether it is a little frightening or not, and decide how we're going to evolve into that understanding. And that offers a choice for miracles to happen, but it also offers a choice for us to take our animalistic nastiness off planet. And I don't think anybody is going to stand by and allow that to happen. And CHIG, just a prime directive. I think that that's probably true, that there probably is some sort of a prime directive.
We do have to take another quick break. I want to remind everybody, if you're looking for something to do Halloween weekend, join me in New York at the Haunted Shanley Hotel in Napanoch, New York. I'll be there with medium Scotty. He is a guest that we've just had on recently doing scary stories with Scotty Davis. But we're going to be out there. We're going to be investigating, talking with you, meeting, greeting, and checking out the ghosts of the Shanley Hotel. Or you can see me sooner by going to the Anderson House in Wabasha, Minnesota. I'll be the special guest investigator. It's going to be an amazing time, August 18th through the 20th. There's information for that and another great upcoming event, Phenomicon, we believe, taking place in Vernal, Utah. You will be talking UFOs, ghosts, Bigfoot, all type of phenomena. We'd like for you to be there, and the list is amazing of guests that they're going to have on hand. I'm one of them, so make sure that you make your way out there. How do you find out more about this? All you have to do is go check out the website, darknessevents.com. That's darknessevents.com. Innovation, creation, vitality, and joy are the pulse of mysoultopia.com, with many custom creations for the mind, body, and spirit, along with classes, intuitive sessions, coaching, and healing energies. MySoultopia.com strives to bring sophistication with a twist to the metaphysical and the holistic market, while raising the community's vibration and channeling the new paradigm, which means new and exciting adventures for all. MySoultopia.com is utopia for your soul. Visit MySoultopia.com, your one-stop shop for all your metaphysical needs, offering hand-selected crystals and crystal jewelry with prices to fit every budget. MySoultopia.com offers the best selections of tarot and divination cards by top designers, expertly curated and award-winning book collections from top authors on every subject you'll need on your spiritual journey. My Soultopia is also proud to offer the finest singing bowls and an eclectic collection of the most amazing gemstones, crystals, and crystal jewelry from the top metaphysical designers in the world. MySoultopia.com is always your one-stop shop for award-winning mixes of Florida water, sage spray, and other spiritual protection. So begin your journey with the best resource, MySoultopia.com. That's MySoultopia.com. Why mess with the rest when you can start with the best? MySoultopia.com. Again, that's MySoultopia.com. If you're interested in UFOs, and I know you are because you're tuned in tonight and you want more information and you're ready to handle the truth, and you've got to check out Accidental Truth, the documentary we are talking about tonight. It is streaming now on Apple TV and Prime Video. You can also purchase it on Prime Video. We have a link for that in today's program guide. Go educate yourself. Check this out. Find out why it has won so many awards, and it may open your eyes to a whole new paradigm. Check out Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations now.
Haunted Magazine, issue 38, Hot Summer Frights, is an electrifying edition that will send shivers down your spine. Dive into a world where history and mystery, the normal and the paranormal, intertwine. In the latest edition, we look at the Hell House hauntings, the terror of the Warminster Thing, the Borley Rectory, Sin Eating in Shropshire, and just what the heck is the Grampus? You can find our magazine at the website hauntedmagazineprintshop.com and selected outlets in the UK, Canada, Australia, and the United States. So grab your copy today. And remember, kids, don't be normal, be paranormal.
All right, we are back. Thank you so much for joining us. Ron James is my guest this evening. I want to talk a little bit more about the amazing documentary that is Accidental Truth. When you're putting this together, you said you were kind of mad going into this, realizing all the things that are going on. What was one of the biggest eye-opening, holy beep moments for you while you were putting this documentary together?
Well, you know, I based the whole thing initially on my interview that I did with Lou Elizondo back in 2018. I actually have one of the only interviews that's really been shot with him outside of very controlled conditions. He'll do a lot of stuff on Zoom. He'll do a lot of stuff on Skype. But to go sit in a studio under lights and do something that is of television quality is a rarity for him because of he was being very tightly controlled. He showed up for this interview after giving a lecture at the MUFON Symposium where he basically said, hey, all along, you guys have been right. And then he sat down in the interview, took off his bulletproof vest, and we got to it. And I asked him some tough questions. And one of them was his literal inadvertent admission to the existence of a they, let's just say that. And he didn't mean to do it. And that's one of the reasons the film's called Accidental Truth, is because people say things in the film that they didn't mean to say. And when you start connecting the dots, you can realize that there's things that they're saying that simply aren't true. And by their inadmission, that covers it. But there's a few accidental truths in the film where, like, the good old fashioned gumshoe reporter that gets in there and asks the tough questions and isn't afraid to really dig for the truth. That's what I did. You don't see that very often anymore. And so at the beginning of the film, I'm sitting in this room with guys that have run secret weapons programs, been high up in government intelligence officials, guarded closely held secrets for a living. And all I can think about is getting them to tell me something they don't want me to know. And literally every interview I went into, that's what I was after.
I got to talk to you off air so I can learn those interviewing techniques so I can get my kids to come clean on stuff once in a while.
You just have to know the right questions. Yeah, that Maureen, he did. He took off his bulletproof vest. He was wearing it all around the symposium. But for the interview, he took it off because it was just me and him and a crew member in the room, and he was safe. But at the time that we did this interview, he was being threatened.
Have you been threatened? I've had a lot of people ask me in private messaging as we're doing this, since so many of these witnesses had to bail out on the recent hearing because they've been threatened and things, and you're coming out there putting out the truth. What's happened to Ron James behind the scenes?
Well, you know, it's interesting. It was very clear to me all along that I was definitely being watched while I made this film. The incidents at Bigelow Aerospace were kind of funny, but black SUVs and helicopters. But you know what I did there? I went up there. I just wanted to shoot some B-roll. Robert Bigelow wouldn't see me. But I realized that as I walked around the plant and I was shooting video, that I was being followed by this black SUV. So the next day, went to Home Depot and I bought a lawn chair. And I went and I parked the lawn chair right outside of the Bigelow Aerospace gate in the vacant lot, right under where the big alien face is on the thing. And I set up my camera about 20 feet away. And I just sat there and interviewed myself for about an hour. Just waiting. It's like, you know, you guys are going to follow me around. Why don't you just pull up and let's talk about why? So I kind of put myself out there. I didn't put any of that in the film, but I do have the images, and it really happened. I was threatened more by people in the industry than I was threatened by the government. I think in the
film industry.
Yeah. You know, people harassing the distributor, people trying to muscle in on the film. Yeah, some very unsavory business, and some very unsavory things happened during the release of the whole thing. You know, 1091, who distributes it, has a long time reputation of being a very good company, but my experience with them is it's been very, very difficult. And so, yeah, there's been a lot of challenges to make this film. And if I had to go through what I went through for the last 2 years, I probably wouldn't do it again. But when it comes to UFO films, I don't know if I have anything else to add to the conversation.
All right. Now, I am curious, the biological aspect, the life forms outside of the UAPs themselves are now coming more into the light, right? There's an actual, help me understand this as well, because this was another fleeting comment. There is some kind of law or something being written into effect regarding the biological aspects and the disclosure to humanity that we do have something.
Well, I mean, I don't know if it centers exactly on the biological aspects, but I will tell you this. The recent legislation cleared the way for whistleblowers to come forth with knowledge they have about these secret programs. The reason we haven't seen a flood of this is because the logistics of this has not really been worked out to the point where, you know, well, how do you do that? And what do you do? Although it's been made, the door has been opened for these people to do it. And we know firsthand that there's a lot of people that want to. The legalities of it haven't been completely worked out. So in other words, well, just because you're allowed to blow the whistle, well, how does that influence what you say about, you know, classified information in a public setting? Do you get to just go to the National Press Club and start showing photos of ET that you got on your iPhone? So what are the rules, basically? Mm-hmm. And so that's all being worked out. And when the pathway for true insiders, like the people that David Grush is talking to, mm-hmm. Some of those people are going to come forward once it's all been worked out. How do I do it in such a way that I don't pay a price, both career, literally with my life even, and how is it going to be that I can be protected? That all hasn't been worked out yet, but the legislation is in the works. And I know for a fact that people in Congress are being briefed behind closed doors. David Grush gave the Senate and House Intelligence Committees some of the information that he's in possession of. And so it's happening slowly, but there's a lot of process that has to be worked out. And I don't think people really understand that right now. And so they're saying, you know, they're asking the questions that they're asking, and they're impatient with the progress. But the wheels are turning.
Do you think there's going to be an outcry from Congress once they hear and see the information that he is keeping close to the vest, that we're not releasing to the public, but he will share behind closed doors? Do you think that is going to push Congress to say, holy hell, this needs to come out?
I think it's going to push Congress to say, holy hell. I don't know if it's going to push him to say this needs to come out. I'll give you an example. I kind of believe that it's a lot easier to get somebody to keep a secret because they understand the need for the secrecy rather than to bully them into keeping a secret. If you tell, we'll kill your family or whatever. And an example is that after the first UAP hearing, Marco Rubio, who was just gung-ho over this topic, he went into that closed door meeting and he came out and I barely heard him say a word since. And so my concern is that when the people that we're counting on to get to the bottom of the information, which is our front-facing politicians in Washington, my concern is that when they really get to the information, they're going to understand why it's being kept from us, and they're just going to shake their heads and walk away. That could happen.
Do me a favor, folks. Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, the documentary is out there. When you watch it, and you will watch it, rate and review. Make sure that you're putting it out there, letting people know about it. Rate and review, because that does help set the truth free. It allows more people to see it. The more that the word of mouth spreads, the more you rate and review programs like this, the bigger they get on the streaming services and platforms, the more opportunity they get to be seen, and the more people that come to the realization that there is something bigger than us, beyond us, and we need to discuss this, the more it will help. Just like rating and reviewing this show, the Paranormal 60 helps us, and I'll beg you to do that again as well. Make sure that you do take just a few moments to rate and review the books, the documentaries, and this program to show support for the people that are coming forward to tell the truth, to share their insights, their knowledge, and their truths, because that goes a long way in making the paranormal, the supernatural, natural and normal, and makes it something that we can just have an open discussion with without shame or eye rolls. That's what's going to make this a lot more accessible to everybody. So please, I just encourage you to do that with whatever of these programs you watch, but go check out Accidental Truth. You've got a great program to check out this week. That's my assignment for all of you. Now, you've got something pretty cool that you're going to be releasing tomorrow on Tuesday, August 1st on the MUFON YouTube channel. Can you give us a little bit of insight and information on that?
Yeah, so a lot of people have been talking about what they're doing in Washington, D.C. and I was in a skiff doing this and that and whatever. MUFON is very active. We have our own lobbying company that's been working very hard for us, A10 and Associates. And when I interviewed Tim Burchett for Accidental Truth, I actually told him everything that I know within just a couple of minutes about everything from Roswell moving forward, the compartmentalized programs, the whole 9 yards. And I videotaped that with 2 cameras. So the very first and possibly only interview ever done, or video ever done, showing an active member of the UFO investigative community sitting in the office of a sitting congressperson, telling him the whole story from Roswell forward in no uncertain terms. It is documented, and it's getting released tomorrow for people to see that it really happened. So when people ask themselves, well, what is it Tim Burchett knows that's making him do this? I can't say I'm responsible for everything he knows, because that would be silly. But I can say that I told him what I know, and he listened, and he agreed with me, and he understands it. And that's why at the beginning of the hearings, he mentioned the film. It was super gratifying to see him do that. I was like, wow, that's huge. So Accidental Truth got read into the Congressional Record.
Fantastic. Thank you for agreeing to come on tonight and share these insights with us. Talk to us a little bit about this and give people the idea maybe to how to start to process this information that's coming, and see that there's hope and there is possibly some light at the end of this tunnel, and that it won't just be a bunch of blathering idiots that just peter out. At least that's the hopes, right? We're hoping that this is going to continue to build, and that with the public behind it this time. And
thanks for having me.
Yeah.
And everybody out there, I made this film to move the ball. I didn't want to waste my time or yours. At the beginning of the film, there's a little bit of a history lesson, but it has to be, because it's a self-contained historical document. But bear with it, and I really feel like, I set out to do an important UFO film. I didn't want to make something that was just another cheeseball thing that's out there. And I really think I pulled it off, and I did it for all of us, everybody, all of you.
Streaming now on, it's streaming now on Apple TV and Prime Video. Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations. We have a link for that up on today's program guide. Ron, thank you so much for being here this evening, sir.
Thank you, Dave. It's an honor to be on your show, and I love you guys. Let's get to the bottom of this and move humanity forward in a positive way.
And I'm sure we're going to be carrying this conversation forward. I look forward to speaking to you more. And I'll be
Come
looking
on
forward
anytime.
I'd love that. I want to make sure that we can continue an open dialogue for listeners, followers around the world. Thank you all for tuning in, for opening your minds and thoughts to the concepts and ideas that we share on this program, for allowing me along on your journey. And may the darkness be just a little more light with the information we share here. Do me a favor, your assignment this week, go watch the documentary and then talk about it on today's program right here on YouTube, or email me, Dave@paranormal60.com. Dave@paranormal60.com. Tell me your thoughts on the documentary, what you liked, what questions you were left with. We'll have Ron back on and share those insights with him and see if perhaps there's more information yet that we can continue to squeeze out of this and understand better so that we can make the next evolutionary leap as we continue to broaden our horizons and minds to the fact that we, in fact, are not alone. Until Wednesday with the Supernatural News Crew, thank you for tuning in. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, and this is the Paranormal 60.